What's up, bass players? Thanks for joining me in the studio. Today I want to talk to you about how to label the notes on the fretboard and give you a system so that you can figure out any note no matter where it is at all times. Let's dive in. First, let's point out why we need to know what notes we're playing. I think it's important as musicians that we just, know what we're doing. We kind of understand a little bit about what is happening as we're playing it. I'm not thinking about the names of the notes as I play them. I'm usually just letting my ear guide what I play, or maybe I know I need to play a certain arpeggio, so my hand shape kind of does that for me. But I know how to analyze it. I know where these notes are, and that's another big point, is naming the notes will help you figure out where they are and get used to them so you can utilize them at any time. It will also help when another musician says, I have this chord progression. You already have an understanding of where on the instrument those notes are going to be, and you don't have to figure them out by ear. And on the other side of that, it will help you convey your musical ideas to other musicians, and you can say, these are the chords that I'm playing, or these are the notes of the bass line. Let's kind of go from there. Because if you're working with a piano player, you can't just say, 5th fret, I'm starting my riff there and then going on. You need to be able to say what notes you're playing so that they can figure it out and not have to do it by ear. If you're working with really great musicians, you probably can just play ideas and it will work out anyway. But it's always easier to say, I'm in this key, or I'm starting in this kind of a tonal framework, and then to be able to go from there. So this sort of system will help you start figuring out your notes so you can figure out easier your scales, your arpeggios, your chords, all of those sorts of things. So let's get to it. There's a couple of things you're going to need to know or be fairly comfortable with to figure out the notes on the fretboard. One of them is the alphabet. I assume most of you are pretty good with that. And you need to be able to add 1 or 2 to any given number. So we got a little bit of math to do. I think we'll be okay, though. I think you can handle this. As you can see over here, I've labeled out for you the natural notes of the musical language. We've got A through G, and you'll see that some of them have a gap between them. Some of them are scrunched really close together, and they're underlined. What this is telling us is if there is a gap or no gap between those two natural notes. And this is what we're going to use. This is where some of that math will kind of come in. If I have a gap, and what I mean by gap is there's a space between them, there's something between those two notes, I can't just go 1 fret right to the next on any given string. I might have to skip a fret here and there. If there is a gap, I'm going to add 2 frets. If there's no gap and it means they're right next to each other, I add 1. So to make this, I think the easiest we can, we're going to start at the beginning of the alphabet. So we're going to be on our A string on the bass. So not the lowest one, but the second lowest one, the A string. Should sound like that. I'm starting here just because it's the beginning of the alphabet. We can do this exact same system on any string, and in fact that's what your homework would be, is to figure out where all of these notes are on all of your strings now. So starting on the A string, what I'm going to ask myself is, what's the next letter of the alphabet? So A, B is next, both in English and in music. And I can notice on this diagram that there is a space between A and B. Those two notes are not underlined. They're not connected really close together. So that's telling me that there is a gap between those two notes, so I need to add 2. So if A is the open string, I'm going to add 2 to that, which is 0 plus 2 is 2, and go to the 2nd fret. So open string, 1st fret, 2nd fret. That note right there at the 2nd fret, that's my note B. I'm going to just continue asking myself now, what's the next note of the alphabet? After B comes C, and I notice that B and C are scrunched together and have a line underneath them, which is telling me to just add 1 fret to wherever I just was. So if I'm on B, 2nd fret, I'm going to add 1 and get to 3rd fret C. And I'm going to go kind of quick through the rest of it, but if you need to, go back, watch again, slow it down, do what you need to. But next letter is D. There is a gap, so I'm going to add 2, go from 3rd fret to 5th fret for my note D. Next, there's a gap between D and E, so I'm going to again add 2, get to 7th fret. There's no gap between E and F. Those two notes are scrunched together and underlined, so I'm going to play E to F, just add 1 fret. So F is 8th. There is a gap between F and G, so again I add 2. So 10th fret. And then there is a gap between G and A, and I would again add 2 to get to the 12th fret. And for now, just to kind of somewhat clarify, I was just using my first finger. Hand pattern for now doesn't matter. We're just trying to name the notes. That system of if there's a gap or no gap will work on every string. So just to do a brief example, if we start on the lowest string, E, and then that's where we start the system. Instead of starting on A, we just start with E. So I notice that E to F has no gap. They're scrunched together with the underline. So it's adding 1. So 1st fret is my note F. and then F to G there was a gap. I add 2 and I get 3rd fret, that sort of thing. And you can play this game anywhere you go. Now the question is, what do we do about those gaps? We noticed that A to B, there was something in between. We still need to be able to label that note and know what it is. There's going to be 2 ways we can do that, and the musical context that you find yourself in, or maybe just who you're conveying this information to, might determine which of these 2 you're going to use. If I start with a natural note and raise it by 1 fret, or in this case by 1 half step, if we're talking more musically, if I raise any note by 1 half step, it becomes sharp. So I go from A to A sharp. That system will always work. Anytime I have a natural note and I raise it by a half step, it becomes sharp. Likewise, if I start from the note B and I go down the fretboard a half step from 2nd fret to 1st fret, any natural note becomes flat. So I would have B flat. And so that 1st fret can be labeled as A sharp or B flat. They sound the same, you play them the same. The musical context, the other notes around them, might help you determine more accurately how you label that note, and that will just come with like more theory and learning more about scales and arpeggios and those sorts of things that will come further down the line. For right now, you can just know that it's both either A sharp or B flat. You can call it whatever you want. Context later on will help you determine which one you call that. There are a couple other tricks that you can use to start helping you navigate this whole vast piece of wood a little bit easier and quicker. One thing to realize, and maybe you know this already from just having to tune the instrument, but if I'm on, let's say, the 5th fret of the lowest string, it's the same note as the next open string. So I have 5th fret lowest string, same as the next highest string, which in this case is the note A. So that's one thing that will help me recognize very quickly that, okay, that 5th fret on the lowest string is A, because it's the same as the next open string up. Likewise, that pattern will continue. If I'm on the A string and I play the 5th fret, the next string up is D. I'm slightly out of tune, you can hear a little bit of that warble. And then likewise on the D string, the 5th fret is the same as the next open string, so that must be the note G. This pattern also works if I'm on the 7th fret of a string. So if I start on the 7th fret of the highest string and I play the next open string lower, those are octaves of the same note, so that must be D. I go down 1 more. It must be A, again, a little bit out of tune, and E. Also, one thing to note is that at the 12th fret, we have the octave of the open string. So if my open string is G, that 12th fret is also G. And then my pattern of notes will just kind of repeat from there. Hopefully that helped. You can reverse engineer this, and you can say if I need to play 6th fret on the highest string, you're going to just start from the open string, get to the natural note that's closest below the note you're trying to find, and then add whatever little bit of stuff that you need to from there. So let's do that example real quick just to explain that a little further for you. If I'm trying to figure out the note that's on the 6th fret of the highest string, I need to find the natural note closest to that that's a fret or 2 frets lower than the one I'm trying to find. So I start from the open string, and I know that's the note G. I'm going to play my game and say there is a gap from G to A, so I need to add 2. So I'm at the 2nd fret now. There is a gap from A to B, so I add 2 more. So I'm on the 4th fret. That must be my note B. And I'm trying to find 6, but I know that B to C does not have a gap. Those 2 notes are crunched together. There's a line underneath them. It means I add 1 to get to 5th fret. And now from C to D, I'd have a gap. So I would have to add 2, but I need 6th fret, and that's only 1 away. So this must be C sharp, because I've gone from C 5th fret, C sharp 6th fret, and then D would be 7th fret. Likewise, if I was starting at the 12th fret and coming backwards, I would start from D 7th fret, and then have D flat as the 6th fret. Either way, however you're going to label them is fine. Like I said, the more theory you learn, the more comfortable you'll become labeling them as sharps or flats, depending on what other stuff is around them. But that's for another lesson. What I'll do now for you is label every note on just the A string, so you can at least kind of get more familiar with that one string, see how this pattern works, and then apply that to your other strings. Open string A, 1st fret A sharp, 2nd fret B, 3rd fret C, 4th fret C sharp, 5th fret D, 6th fret D sharp, 7th fret E, 8th fret F, 9th fret F sharp, 10th fret G, 11th fret G sharp, and 12 we're back to A. And in fact, that's how I know I got the answer correct, because that 12th fret should be A. So if you got to that 12th fret and you're not on A, you know somewhere along the line maybe you missed a sharp, maybe you put a gap between B and C, or you didn't between, D and E, things like that. Those can be your checks. Now if I go backwards, I'm going to label all of my notes with flats. So starting at 12th fret A string, A, 11 A flat, 10 G, 9 G flat, 8 F, 7 E, 6 E flat, 5 D, 4 D flat, 3 C, 2 B, 1 is B flat, and open string A again. Another thing to notice is that where the natural notes are didn't change, and we're not labeling them any differently. So no matter if I'm going up or down, 2nd fret was always B, 3rd fret was always C, etc. from there. You can play this same game on all your strings. So that's your homework, trying to figure out where all of the notes are on all the strings. One easy, good place to start is to take a simple bass line that you already know and start trying to figure out what notes you're already playing with that bass line. Hopefully this helped. If it did, please leave a like. If it didn't, leave a dislike. I won't be offended, but just email me why. Tell me what information I missed, how I could have helped more, how I could have broken things down a little bit clearer. Remember, you can always go back and rewind and check this stuff again, watch it a few times to really make this information settle in. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.